Hello and welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I'm pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. I'm looking forward to talking about Videodrome. We've started. It's October, and so we are doing horror. And I think it was your suggestion that this time as a theme, body horror.
Indeed.
We've already done The Fly. So the next obvious...
We've done that duo as well, which...
Well, I was thinking Cronenberg. Yes. Yeah. Yes, we did do Texo as well. So we thought the obvious one to start with would be Videodrome.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are. When did you first see Videodrome?
On video.
Yeah, same. Which is kind of fitting.
And believe it or not, I didn't know it was a Cronenberg movie. I don't think I actually knew. I don't think I knew properly who Cronenberg was yet.
Right. Yeah.
So I had seen. I think I'd seen Scanners, and I think I'd seen Rabid already.
Okay.
The reason I watched this is because Debbie Harry was in it.
Oh, fair enough.
And Debbie Harry was one of my first crushes, I think, really. So I've always loved Blondie.
What was your impression when you saw it, though?
Well, one, she gets naked in it, so it was great.
Well, yes, I mean...
But it was a sort of, oh, why is Debbie Harry putting a cigarette out on her boob?
Uh-huh.
I certainly didn't understand this movie the first time I watched it.
Yeah, I think I'd say the same, actually, the first time I watched it.
I was definitely too young for it.
And then you become an adult and you do understand it, and you realise the brilliance of Videodrome. And then you do a podcast, and... the co-host suggests you rewatch it, and you watch it in 2024, and you're like, holy shit, this is more relevant than ever. Just change it to the internet and social media, and wow. Like, this hasn't dated at all.
Yeah. And the thing is nothing seems to change, because...
No, it's worse now.
And he does Existence a little later.
Yeah.
Which is a similar sort of thing, but only with, virtual reality.
Yeah.
And it's like, things just move on. They don't really change. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I was rewatching this yesterday night, and I was like, wow, if you just like change this to social media and YouTube channels and things like that, it's like, oh my god, this is...
Especially the way Oblivion describes what's going on and perception.
Yeah.
You think, that's just...
That's where we are. Yeah.
That's social media. Oh dear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember, I think my first memory of this movie is like I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed all of the effects and stuff, but I think I was too young to understand like what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, that's a really cool movie, but I don't really know what was going on. And then watching it a little later in life, I was like, oh, okay, this all makes sense, actually. I understand now.
And I think, for me, it's a case of, it's, when we first watched Scanners, it was just because the guy's head explodes and you just want to see
Yeah. Everyone was aware of that scene. That was the, passed around the schoolyard kind of like, you need to know about this.
Yeah, and it's, I think, one of the most paused moments and slowed moments ever on video, isn't it?
Oh yeah, if you rented it, that was always the bit that was fucked, where people had obviously...
Yeah, it would always be...
You'd always get that. You'd get those bits in when you were renting videos, certain bits of films that would always be a bit...
heavy gore ones or nudity.
Yes, yeah. And it would always be ropey on the tape, and you're like, oh yeah, okay.
I think the other one was... what is it? It's the one with Phoebe Cates where she comes out of the pool. Fast Times?
Yeah, something like that.
That one's, I think, the other one that's considered one of the most paused moments in film history.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was saying that this sort of became one of those movies that you sort of go, if you love like Scanners, you've got to watch this because of the effects.
Yes. I mean, this is certainly an effects movie, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it's Baker again, so you've got almost sort of hot off of American Werewolf. He comes and
hits out of the park again.
yeah, and they, I think they initially with the effects, when he got the script, there was a lot more weird stuff that they never got round to filming.
Sure, I can imagine they were somewhat restricted by the reality of the budget and the reality of what they could and couldn't do. Because I think they pushed some of these effects amazingly well in this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the TV is one of the best.
The TV effect still stands up, and when I was rewatching, I was like, I don't know, is that still going to stand up as well as it does in my memory? And it really does. Like, for the most part, it's really good.
Yeah, and I think I think he wanted like 6 months to work on it, and because of the way the Canadian government's funding worked, they gave you a date, and basically you had to spend all the money within that period.
Yeah.
Or it went away.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up having a date to finish by that they were like, oh fuck, that means we've got to rush everything. So everything ended up being rushed.
Yeah.
And he didn't get the sort of the full time that he wanted to do it. But what he did do, what they did, I mean, I think 3 different groups, they had visual effects, prosthetic effects, and they had standard effects. So they had like 3 groups that really came together to make things like the TV work and and some of the other bits and pieces. And it's fucking amazing what they did in the short time they had.
Yeah, it is incredible. So
there is one scene that I'd love to have seen how they filmed it. It's basically I think it's Nikki and Max kissing, and they melt, and then the puddle runs into some guy, and he melts into them.
It's right. Like, wow. That sounds amazing.
That. And there's another one with which I'll talk about later when we get to the specific moment.
Well,
but yeah,
let's get into it. And so we open with the the opening credits is like orange font on black, but the score immediately starts, and the score to this, I love the score of this movie. Like every time that main driving score comes in, I'm like, oh, that is so cool.
And it gets slightly more deranged as it goes as well.
Yes, yeah, which is really cool. And we open with Max in bed, and he has the TV turns on. And we get his basically, which when you first watch it, you're kind of like, oh, is this like in a world where like TV's like available and it's all like customized somehow, like the internet and AI, and then you realize later that she gives him the tapes with his like plan for the day. She's like, oh yeah, this is what you've got on tomorrow, so put this in the video. Put this in the VCR and it'll be ready for the morning, and it'll tell you your day and everything you need to do. And it's like, whoa, that's so convoluted.
Yep.
It's like the most convoluted thing ever.
Assistant Brady makes a good morning, time to wake up. Here's what you've got to do every morning. You think, bloody hell.
Yeah. Although it kind of makes sense in the context of the movie, because everyone is just obsessed with video. Like like everything must be video. There's like an addicts clinic for video, Yeah. So yeah, we're introduced to Max James Woods, who we see in bed. He makes some coffee, and of course he's got this meeting to attend. He is the president of Civic TV. Which is basically a real sleazy fucking TV station dealing in like violence and pornography, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was based on City TV in Canada, which it was had a late night block called the Baby Blue Movie.
Oh, okay.
Where they showed sort of softcore pornography and sort of violent.
Okay.
So basically, just what they did.
Except here, obviously, you get the impression this is a mainstream. They do say they're small, but they're obviously not just a local thing. They are somewhat, they have some reach. But he goes for a meeting with these guys, and he's so Max is looking for like the next big thing. And so he goes to this meeting, and I love that these people he meets that they're pitching Samurai Dreams, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we've got like I think he says, oh, we've got 12 episodes with 16 potential. Like we could do like a few more potentially. And he's like, oh, show me episode 12. And the guy's like, but you'll ruin the plot of our pornography. It's like, you won't understand what's going on. And it's like, really?
It's like, yeah. Like, he really cares about the story.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. I mean, the teenager in me immediately is like, wow, 3 minutes in and we've got boobs. This is great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And of course, I love that, we go into the scene of Samurai Dreams and whatever. It is obviously some softcore porn thing.
Yeah.
But then it pans out to the boardroom, and it's just like the three of them looking bored to shit. And you can tell they're just so desensitized to everything, because these are the people that have sat through at least an episode of everything they've shown, right?
I think one of them says something along the lines of, "Well, it's just too milk toast."
Yeah, it's like pedestrian. Yeah,
it doesn't get me off. It needs to be weirder.
Yeah, and James Wood agrees, right?
Yeah.
He says, "Oh yeah, maybe you're right." And you can tell that he is disappointed. He really wants. I think he wants his station to be elevated to the next level, and he needs the big thing to make that happen.
Yeah.
And obviously, in this world, in this society of the Videodrome world, that revolves around sex and violence.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few people that disagree effectively.
Yeah.
The talk show being the only place where we really see people disagree with it.
And so the dude that's selling it in the hotel sort of thing, the dude that's selling videos, that's a guy called David Subachi,
right?
Who ends up being a politician in Canada.
Really?
Yeah, and his opponents used his appearance in this movie to
oh my
get
god,
at him.
He's acting, guys.
Yeah.
It's not real life. So anyway, he ends up after this meeting, he goes to meet Harlan, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The basically the pirate operator. He operates the satellite dish, and
tech man.
He's the tech man, yes. And he can find broadcasts from all over the world. He's very proud of his ability to basically steal broadcasts from anywhere and record them.
You get that shot of you get as well almost a repeated shot of the difference between there's like you get the big skyscrapers in the distance.
Yeah.
That are like, it looks like rich castles sort of things, and you get the shitty streets in front, and then you get that shot of the satellite dish moving, and changing direction, sort of, I guess, sort of really to set up that, oh look, they've got this tech that they can get signals with. Ooh.
Yeah, but Harlan is excited. He has found something, using his satellites, all the way from what he thinks is Malaysia at the time, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically just a clip from this show. But the show is effectively just torture and murder. In a room with like a clay wall. It's just like a clay wall and just a woman being tortured.
Mm-hmm. And he basically says that he can only get so many seconds. Was it 50 seconds or something?
It's something like that, because they keep scrambling it, right?
Yeah, they've got their own. They've got their de-scrambler of scramblers.
Yes, yeah, and obviously Max is immediately hooked on this video. And he's you get that look from Harlan where Harlan's like, you really do enjoy this, like as much as you pretend to be like it's all business. That he definitely knows that Max is at the very least very curious about this kind of stuff. But he's like, well, we need to find more, and he's like, God, it's so believable, it's so good. And I think it's here that Harlan's like, well, I think it might be real,
Yeah. And he say, "What's the story?" Is like
there isn't one. This is it.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he does say that it. I think, does he call it Videodrome at this point?
I think so.
I think he mentions that it's Videodrome.
Yeah.
So he's obviously very interested, but he is then called to appear on a talk show, Rena King's TV talk show. And he's basically been brought on to it's like a, you know, talking heads show. He's been brought on to defend the disgusting trash that he's putting out on TV. And we have Debbie Harry, who in this is called Deborah Harry, and it always feels weird to me that she's called Deborah Harry because I've always known her as Debbie Harry. She's a psychiatrist, Nikki Brand, and we also have Professor Brian Oblivion, who is appearing via TV. And effectively they're like, well, you know, what, do you not feel some kind of remorse for showing this stuff? Do you not think it's corrupting society effectively? And Max kind of, I think, well, for a while he expertly dances around this. He's like, well, I'm giving people an out, right? He's like, I'm stopping people doing perverted stuff in the world because I give them that out via our TV show, right? Via Civic TV. But then he starts hitting on Nikki, and it's like, oh, dude, you are just coming across terribly here. Like,
I thought he came across interestingly well, because
I mean, the host is clearly annoyed. Like, she is well pissed.
Yeah, the host is kind of out of her depth a little, and the host says to Nikki, you know, what do you think? You know, and she starts talking about, you know, violence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he says,
I'd like to take you out for dinner.
Well, no, first of all, he mentions the dress. It's like, well, he says, what do you mean?
You're this stuff worked. Yeah.
Yeah, you were doing the same thing.
It's provocative.
That dress, you know. What he said?
What would Freud say? I think.
What would Freud say about that dress? And she said, I admit it.
Yeah.
She says, I live in a. How is it? She says, I live in a. I'm a highly stimulated person in an overstimulated world or something. She says.
Yeah, something like that. That's a really good line. And we do get Professor Brian Oblivion, who basically says that it's ruining everyone. TV is the death of everyone. And he he says that Oblivion isn't really his real name. It's like it's his TV name, and eventually everyone will have TV names, catchy TV names, which again makes me think of YouTube and social media, and everyone's got their handle, and it's not their real name, it's not their real thing. So you know,
about the screen becoming the sort of the eye and the the projector sort of projecting back basically at you. Yeah,
and he kind of almost, you know, foretells this future where television is basically supplanted real life. It's now, you know, it's more important than real life. TV, the fake TV becomes reality.
Yeah.
So following the talk show, I think he heads back to the pirate station again, and he kind of talks through with Harlan. And he says that, well, you know, he's like, well, have you got anywhere with any of this? And I think is it here that he says that he's going to work? No, he says he's going to work on it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's later that we find out that it's actually in Pittsburgh. So he's gonna continue to work on it and try and figure it out. But he's basically now been tasked with tracking these guys down. He wants to know more about it. He has to go do that because Ren has to go perv on Nikki, who's working at a radio station, and he basically just starts tapping on the glass and is like, yeah, hello. Like,
and she seems to be having a phone conversation with
someone who's lost their mind.
Yeah, someone who's been doing things but blaming it on her sister, but it's not actually her sister, it's her.
She absolutely despises her sister, but really despises herself, is the impression you get. But it's all great because it does show that in this reality, you know, this you get the impression that TV is to blame for most of society's woes, and that it's kind of breaking people mentally.
Yeah.
And you know, as a result, Nikki is very busy. So he takes her home, and they kind of go on a date, and he puts on an episode of Videodrome.
She starts going through his tapes, and she says, "Have you got any porno?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah." So, you know,
it's literally all my station does. Yes.
Yeah.
Plenty.
And she says it gets me in the mood.
Yeah.
And he's like,
well, I've got this clip from Videodrome.
And he's like, no, don't, not that one.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think so, no. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm up for anything.
Mm.
And he does seem reluctant, but he does put it on.
Yeah. And she kind of she's clearly into it, and she also says like, oh, you know, she draws attention to the scars on next to her neck, right? On
her first response is to say, "Oh my god, I don't believe it," and it's like such a violent outburst that he's like, "Oh my god, I'll stop it, I'll turn it off."
Oh
like,
yeah, and she's like, "No, keep going."
Yeah, and then she says, "Hey, why don't you take out your Bowie knife and cut me a little?" And you know, she shows her shoulder, and she's got. He says, "Oh, it looks like somebody's already had a go," sort of thing.
Yeah,
and he is clearly freaked out by the actual reality of this.
Yeah,
I think the idea of it on TV and on screens and stuff, that's one thing. But when I think he's faced with Nikki's actual desires,
yes,
he's a bit.
He is exactly what this society's created, where he's like, he's so desensitized to it, and he loves the idea of it fake. But in reality, he's like, oh god, that's you know,
he's definitely freaked out by her.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, she like I said, she's oh yeah, you know, I do this sort of thing all the time. It really turns me on, and it's like it's like, okay, so where does it go from here?
Yeah.
And then he's putting pins in her ears, and
yeah, well, they presumably have sex, and then post sex, she's like, "Could you just pierce my ears with pins, please?"
A massive need, yeah. You know, and then you know, you get this really cool shot where they pull back, and it's their bodies entwined, but they're on the set of Videodrome.
Yes, yeah.
You know, they're on the sort of the wash down mat, and it's like a reddish room, isn't it?
I think it's clay, isn't it? Don't they say it's like a clay wall or something?
Yeah, the back wall is clay, but the rest of the walls are like sort of like a reddy.
Yes, yeah.
It looks like you could hose everything down, you know, easily. I think because he says about, oh, is that clay back there? And he says, yeah. And then he also adds, I think it's electrified.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So you already you get the impression that this is making an impression on him. It's
making an impression to the point that as they're having sex, I think that shot actually fades out on him staring at the TV while having sex with her.
Yeah.
Because he's just, you know, he's upset. He's staring at that empty room on the TV, which obviously we just saw them in. He's then staring at that room. So yeah, then he heads to the office, presumably the next day.
I think we also get that. We get the. Does he goes back there and talk to him before he goes to see the what's her name? The woman that she I think he goes to the office and he's watching.
I thought he goes to see the old lady. I forget her name.
She's in the office already for him because she's showing him the toga.
Yes, that's right.
Softcore toga and stuff. Yeah. Bloody character.
Masha.
Yeah.
Masha. And she's like a kind of feminist photographer, right? Or something.
She seems to be
She's clearly someone that they respect in the industry anyway.
Yeah, and the word I can't, my mouth is having problems pronounce. She finds things. She's basically
yes.
She goes out and she gets kind of what he's asking for. So it seems to be that she's a sort of
contact,
an artist that knows other people, and it's like she's kind of like a fixer, I guess you would say. She goes out and she finds what you want.
Yeah, and he wants her to find Videodrome.
Yeah, and she's this time she's got this it's like Roman orgy sort of looking thing, but like very sort of
Caligula kind of soft.
Yeah, but not quite
soft
as
Caligula.
Yeah, like a soft Caligula. And she's obviously really impressed with it, but he's like, oh, when do we get to the good stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, he's so desensitized. Again, like the whole way through this, you're like, he's just so desensitized to this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now, of course, he's had that taste of Videodrome.
Yeah.
Which is the next step for him. So he asks Masha to basically find out more about Videodrome.
Yeah.
And she effectively explains to him that Videodrome it's a political ideology. It's a whole movement.
Yeah.
They don't know what the goals are, but they're not good. Basically, she's like, it's a political movement, kind of vaguely violent, and we're not quite sure what it is. But
she says that. I think she says that later when they're in the restaurant.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna forget if you know, go for it, because I'm probably gonna forget in which order people talk about things. In this.
At this point, he says,
does he just set her off to find it?
Yeah,
possibly.
Get your name and stuff, and from the look of her face, I would say that she knows about it, but she's not.
Yeah, I thought it was here that she found that Oblivion might know.
No,
more.
It's at the restaurant. She tells him.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So at this point, he just sends her on the mission.
Sends her on the mission. Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
And then we cut back to him and Nikki, and Nikki is expressing her desire to turn up on Videodrome. She's like, I belong on that show.
Yeah.
And of course he's kind of horrified by this. He's like, no, Jesus, like, you cannot be doing this. That's a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
But she is clearly into it.
Well, I think right. So we've got our orders mixed up, because at this point they know it's in it's a signal's coming from Pittsburgh, because she tells him that she wants to audition at Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So that would have been the earlier scene.
So he has seen Tech Boy again, and Tech Boy said, "Hey, it's actually in Pittsburgh. It's beamed back from there. It's
it's before he goes off to find Nikki. I thought it was later than that, but that must be the scene where they do that."
And this time around, Nikki says, "Oh, I'm guess where I'm going. I've been sent on an assignment to somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what it is?" And I can't remember what he says. It's somewhere like Vegas or something. And she's like, "No, I'm going to Pittsburgh." And he's like, he's actually horrified. It's like the idea.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, because again, it's reality, right?
Yeah. And
when it's someone he doesn't know and it's on video, he can assume it's fake and it's staged.
Yeah.
Because I think he's also kind of he's a little horrified when what's his name, Harlan, says that he thinks it's snuff. He's like, that's crazy, like to him it's like, no, it can't possibly be. So yeah, the idea of her actually going and doing that is it's horrifying to him. So he then heads to the restaurant with the dancers and meets with Masha. And this is where I'm pretty sure this is where she tells him about Brian Oblivion.
Yeah.
He may know more about Videodrome and that it is this political ideology. It's vague, violent, and dangerous. Basically, they're not sure what the underlying goals are, but she's pretty sure it's not good.
Yeah.
But Oblivion has more answers.
And I love the sort of the relationship they have when
when he sort of like tries to flirt with her, and she's like, you're a bit old.
You're too old for me. I love that. And
she looks up at the waiter though.
Yeah, It's really funny.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, so Max eventually, presumably relatively easily, tracks down Oblivion's office, which is the cathode ray mission. Basically, you know, in this world, it's not enough for homeless people to have food and shelter and clothing. They must have TV. Like TV is key to life. So this shelter basically provides. I think it provides food and shelter and everything else, but a big focus on TV.
It provides basically a cubicle where you get. It looks like a meal and a TV to watch.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which they do. Which Bianca does explain.
Yeah, they're studying them, right?
No. Well, not what she. That's not what she says later. She's so. When he's speaking to Bianca, she says, because he says, "Oh, why are you why do homeless people need sort of TVs?"
Yeah,
and she says, it's to help reintegrate them into society.
Yeah, like they're so broken.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's more of they see it as she sees it as a helpful thing. It's
yeah. But they're monitoring them because they're like literally watching them over the balcony.
They are, but not sort of in that sort of way.
Oh no, not malevolently or anything. No, but they are monitoring the people. They're basically like outpatients, aren't they? They're basically being like, "Are you okay to leave yet? Like, have you had a suitable dose?" They're almost like addicts, I guess. They're like on a come down as far as she's concerned. But yeah, there's some great scenes as he's kind of walking through the various cubicles, and you see the guy looks up at him really creepily as he's watching some fucking horrific thing on the TV.
It looks like a heart. Open heart surgery.
Yeah, I mean, he just kind of the look he gives when he turns around and smiles is like, oh god, like what the hell?
The cathode ray.
Yeah.
That is the tube that makes the TV work. Well, it used to make TVs work.
Yeah, not anymore.
No, that's what they used to be.
Yeah, it was the old tubes.
It's actually a really beautiful object when you see it. It's
incredible,
just
like
an experimental object.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super cool. Back when TVs used to weigh something.
Yeah, back when TVs were fucking huge.
Yeah.
Actually, my first TV when I was a kid was a hand-me-down from a relative.
Right.
And it was one of those cabinet TVs. It was fucking huge.
Oh, those are great.
It was so cool, and it had the dial to change the channel and everything.
Yeah.
Really like that bloody thing. I mean, it didn't last very long. It died, about half a year after I had it.
Yeah. I remember, I think our family had one originally. My grandparents certainly did. When I had my own TV, it was like a small portable. It wasn't a big thing like that. But yeah, those are very cool. Yeah, really, really cool. So he obviously walks around the mission for a little while, and then ultimately comes across Bianca Oblivion. I think she spots him actually wandering around.
She sees him, and she tries to sort of nip off, doesn't she?
Yeah, but he's waiting for her.
Yeah.
And ultimately, she takes him upstairs to Oblivion's office, which is awesome. Like, it's just the set design is amazing in this place.
It's the first
upper class kind of thing. It's the first place it feels classy compared to everything else.
It's the first sign of opulence.
And
because it's all religious artifacts and religious statuary,
old books, paintings. All
the furniture looks like it came from
antique
cathedral.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, they are in a church, so that this is clearly a converted church that they're in. But this is the first sign that we've had of any sort of kind of beauty, really, because almost every room they've been, including Max's apartment's a shithole. And And the room that they've got, I know that the room that the assistant is in, the tech guy.
Yeah.
I mean, walls are falling apart. That everything is sort of gross. So this is completely the first time we see beauty in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is the first room we've been in that isn't sleazy and awful. But yeah, so he points out, he's like, oh, it's a nice view, and she kind of explains what they do here, as you said. So they start talking about Oblivion, because he's looking for Brian Oblivion, and she's like, well, he hasn't spoken to anyone. Like, he hasn't had a dialogue. Does she say he hasn't had a dialogue in like decades or something? Like, the monologue is his preferred form of communication. It's like, wow, that's amazing.
And when we initially see him on the TV in the interview thing, he says that basically TV has become his reality, which is why he doesn't appear on TV unless he's on TV. Yeah.
He appears on TV, but only on TV.
Yeah.
So he says he really wants to speak to him, and she says, well, he doesn't speak to anyone. Like, you can communicate, you can speak to him, and maybe he'll send you a tape. Like, you're not gonna see him. And he says, well, what about Videodrome? Basically, he name drops Videodrome, and he's like, well, tell him about Videodrome, and we'll see if he wants to contact me. Basically. So obviously she presumably does this. So I think we then cut back to Max's apartment, and he's kind of got Videodrome on pretty much constantly in the background now at this point. He's kind of working, I think, but in the background we've still got Videodrome on the go. So he's clearly becoming like obsessed, right?
And it seems quite paranoid, because there's a scene where he's
is this where he starts hallucinating? He starts getting like minor hallucinations, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's got a gun now. He's for some reason he's found himself a gun. He's got this
in like a heart bag tote. He is. So he now has this gun, and he kind of it's clear he doesn't really know how guns work, because he ejects the magazine, and he's like, oh god, what am I doing?
Over the magazine, shoots out.
And he's like totally confused by it. But then of course there's a knock at the door, so he scrabbles to kind of hide everything, and he hides it really badly under a newspaper.
Terrible job.
It's like, it looks more suspicious now than if he just did the bag up
everywhere and putting like a newspaper over the top of it. It's like, well, that's well hidden.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. And of course it's his assistant at the door. She's come in with his tapes for tomorrow. She's like, oh, this is your tape for tomorrow. I'll put the video in and get it ready. And of course he's like, no, don't touch it, because there's like Videodrome in there. And from his perspective, he slaps the crap out of her.
Yeah,
he just grabs her and starts hitting her, and we get that great shots of Debbie Harry's character, Nikki.
Yeah,
in between.
He slaps her, and Bridie goes over.
Yeah,
and then when Bridie comes back across,
it's Nikki.
She's Nikki.
Yeah,
and he basically strikes her again. And
then apologizes.
And then he comes out of it.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh God, I'm sorry for hitting you," and she's like, "Hit me? You didn't hit me. What are you talking about?" Like, and he's like, "Oh no, I know I didn't hit you. I mean, like, she's clearly like, are you all right? Like, you're not well." And of course she's like, "Oh, let me get you some water from the kitchen," and he's like, "No, God, no," because there's the gun over there and whatnot. You would imagine though, in this world, like, having a gun wouldn't be that big of a deal. I wouldn't have thought. Given all of the crap that's going on in this world, but apparently it is. She basically is ushered out. Doesn't he say? He said, "Oh yeah, I was in a deep sleep when you came in, so I'm just completely out of it. Like, I'll catch you later." And she's like, "Well, just make sure you put the tape in." He's like, "Yeah, don't worry." And she's like, "Oh, by the way, there's another video from Oblivion. He sent you this tape. He told me to give it to you personally." And she's like, "Oh, great, okay, leave now."
Oh, and he also says to her that he's getting a rash.
Oh yes, yeah. He says, "I think I'm starting to get a
Stomach.
rash." Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so she's totally confused, and she clearly cares for him and is quite worried. But yeah, she leaves, and now, of course, he has the tape. He has a tape from Professor Oblivion, and as he takes it out of the case, it pulses, it moves, and he drops it to the floor and is quite worried about it, but I guess ultimately he probably puts it down to being a hallucination like the one he just had of hitting someone, which wasn't reality either. This is my favorite scene of the movie because this is handled amazingly well. So he puts the tape in, and we see the tape as Professor Oblivion is delivering this pre-recorded speech, about Videodrome and the the dangers of video and all of this. But then he addresses Max directly, and the sound editing in this scene is amazing because it's all video. You've got the background noise of the video player, you've got the kind of almost white noise of the video player. As soon as he addresses Max, it stops, and it's crystal clear audio as soon as he addresses Max. It's such an expertly done effect to kind of really be like, oh, it's directed at you now. It suddenly becomes a crystal clear audio of him addressing Max. He starts explaining what Videodrome is whilst a masked person starts coming in and starts tying him down to the chair that he sat in.
And he explains that he'd been through Videodrome, and Videodrome induced a tumor in his brain.
Yes, it started growing in his brain,
and he had it removed.
And he's convinced that it was given to him from the video. Like the tumor didn't grow, it wasn't there anyway, it was given to him by Videodrome.
He believes that the signal itself created the and he believes that it's like a new organ, it's a new thing, and it will eventually become a new being, our next evolutionary form.
That's right. He sees it as like the next step of evolution ultimately.
And he says that and initially he was working with the government because he thought this is what the goal was. And then the government basically
realized their motivations.
That wasn't what they wanted, that they only saw the potential for getting rid of the trash, if you like.
Control and removing those they don't want.
Which gets explained a little more later, but at this point he's mostly telling him about the signal and how it affects the brain and the being, as it were.
And he starts getting strangled by the hooded man, and I love James Woods, his reaction, Max's reaction to this, because again, this is on TV, not in real life. So Max just does that disconnect that Max has is so clear throughout this entire film. If it's on TV, it's fine. Because this guy's getting strangled, and at this point he thinks that Oblivion's still alive, that he's just not meeting with him, right? So as far as he's concerned, he's still alive, but he's getting strangled, and he's like, oh, I've still got questions, and he starts asking the questions. Like, he doesn't give a shit that this guy's being strangled in front of him on TV. And then of course he dies, and the hood comes up, and we see that it's Nikki. A wonderful scene. I really, really love the entire way that scene is executed and delivered is fantastic. And then of course it effectively turns into a love scene with a TV. Which is amazing in its. I can't believe how this scene has not really dated. It still looks incredible.
Amazing.
It basically is Nikki's talking. It closes in on her lips, right, and then the whole screen is just filled with her lips and the red lipstick. And then
beckoning him to her.
Yeah, and as he approaches, we see the TV is starting to pulse, and the TV's got like veins across the top as well, across the top of it. Max is an Atari player. That's the only thing I probably agree with Max's whole personality in this film. I'm like, hey, you play Atari? I like Atari. But yeah, he starts like caressing the TV. The lips start bulging out of the screen, like the screen, which obviously is curved on those old TVs anyway, becomes like super exaggerated. And they do such a good job of, because it's obviously like some kind of balloon that they're projecting into.
Yeah.
But they manage for the most part to not show where his hand is clearly, where they manage to hide the fact that it's projected really, really well.
Yeah.
I think there's like one or two bits with his hand where you can kind of see it, but generally it's such a great effect.
Yeah. And the whole cabinet took such a it took the three groups of
I can't even imagine
people to do all the different things.
Yeah.
And they had to build it with the to get the sides and the top to pulse the way it did.
Yeah.
They had to sort of like build it in layers.
Right.
And then if one layer didn't work, they had to build the whole thing again.
Jeez. And
the top, the actual the lid, that when it pulses and the veins come out, one of the guys, I can't remember what his name was, but he came up with the. And initially they were just going to blow it, so it would just go up and down when they blew it.
Yeah.
And he said, I can make a keyboard that will
make different parts of it pulse. And...
So he basically went to a music shop, got an old keyboard, came back, fitted it with air valves and things, so that you could literally play
it like an organ and it'll blow.
I can't remember the name, the tune that they played, but there was a tune that he played while they were, which made the air blow up the thing go up and down and pulse. It's such a fucking cool job. And the sort of the screen was like, I think they initially tried a like a balloon sort of material, and then they went to sort of like a dental dam.
Right.
And I think Woods described it as basically just like touching a boob, like a giant boob.
Right. Yeah. So presumably the following day, Bianca is about to head to her office at the mission, and she finds Ren sat at the bottom of the stairs waiting for her, tape in hand from Oblivion. Effectively, she takes him upstairs and she explains that the visions he's having are the side effects of having viewed Videodrome, and that it is like a carrier of this virus. The signal carries this virus that creates the tumor, and it's what created the tumor in Professor Oblivion.
Yeah.
Oblivion, of course, helped initially to create it, as you said, but he found out the malevolent purposes and backed out. So she believes, and I think he believed, that they used Videodrome, his own invention, to kill him.
Yeah.
She basically takes him into the back room because he insists on meeting Oblivion, and she's like, he's through there. And he goes in, and of course, it's just hundreds of VHS tapes.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah.
Shelf
upon shelf. And she's like, well, he was more he was more videotape than man.
Yeah.
By the end. And that he apparently like spent entire days just recording hundreds and hundreds of these videos. So every time there's an interview, he appears obviously on TV, which is his gimmick.
Yeah.
But of course it's just her keeping him alive because she believes in his message so strongly.
Yeah.
She believes, well, he can't be dead. We have to keep the message going. And she thinks that if he's dead, then the message will get lost. So he has to keep appearing as a videotape.
And she also says that when Max first turned up, she thought he was there to kill her from the government. She thought he was one of their agents.
Oh yeah, because she says, "Are you the one?" And then later she's like, "Oh no, you weren't the one." Okay, fine. But yeah, she says like, "Oh yeah, I thought you were sent by them to finish the work and do me in." But yeah, and as they're talking, she's collecting Black Spine tapes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the end, she says, you know, watch these, and she's got like an armful of tapes that she gives him, which he dutifully does. But as he's, I'm pretty sure I think he might go back to the office briefly. I can't remember. But effectively, he ends up starting to watch through the tapes, and as he's watching them, we start to get the stomach vagina, right? This is where it starts to. At first, it's kind of he opens his shirt and it's kind of like a scratch, and then in the next scene, it's kind of a bit more prominent, and then ultimately, it completely opens.
It is the new organ.
Yeah, and of course he's like starts fondling it with his gun, right?
Yeah, he's poking. Well, the thing is he's sat on his couch.
Yes.
With no top on.
Topless on the couch.
For
the
holster for the gun.
Yes.
And he has it's a Walther, isn't it? It's a Walther, and he's sort of first of all just idly scratching his stomach with it.
Yeah, his rash. Yeah.
You've got the line that sort of is there, and it looks like he's getting more irritated by it, and he's poking at it a little bit more, and then it happens.
Yeah, and more again, what an incredible effect.
Yeah, it's built into the couch.
Yeah, of course.
But
it works. I mean, it still looks good.
Yeah, I think they do a really good job with the skin textures on a lot of this stuff. It looks,
and the framing, they're really careful about where they show it, and how they show it, and I think as a result it still looks pretty good.
And when they get when eventually his arm is in it, and he does get up, and the shot of him with his arm in the he's walking around with his arm in his stomach, and I think that's all a false arm, sort of thing. And I think they worried that it was. I think it got a little too small, but because of the perspective they use for it, it
kind of works. Yeah.
So
yeah, he ends up putting the gun in, or it gets kind of pulled in. It's kind of one or the other.
It does seem to, I mean, the way this sort of the stomach vagina sort of. It's almost like it's calling to him, isn't it? It's opening and pulsing at him, and
well, in the same way that the TV did with Nikki with the "Come to Me" stuff, it's very similar. But it gets kind of gets pulled in, and his arm gets pulled in as well, and you get that great shot, as you said, of him kind of stood there with his arm kind of stuck in his stomach.
Yeah.
But then he pulls his arm out, but no gun. Yeah. The gun is gone, and of course he's like, he panics, but he obviously thinks it's a hallucination. So he's like desperately throwing everything around looking for the gun.
Yeah, and he has nothing. He doesn't even have a scratch on his stomach this time. There's no.
No, it's almost like completely disappeared.
Yeah.
But of course the first thing he does is go to grab the gun from the holster, and it's not there, and then he's like panicking and kind of looking everywhere for the gun, but it's gone. Wonderful. Really, I mean, not wonderful. I mean, it's gross, but it's an incredibly well made effect.
Wonderful's a good term. I think it's still wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful, right? Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll stick with it.
It's wonderful. I mean, just amazing fucking effects, and it does make you think, wow. If they did this in so many months, just imagine what they could have done if they'd have been given more time.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that they
get that. You get that great line from Oblivion as well. The nothing real outside of our perception line, as he's like lost the gun and all of that kind of stuff. It's really cool. So he is phoned, I think, and told, "Hey, Videodrome's producer, Spectacular Optical Corporation or something, who used to or still make eyeglasses.
Barry Convex, isn't it? I love that name, Barry Convex.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, it's got those two brilliant things. It's got Barry, the most basic sort of boring sounding name, and then Convex. It's a weird but cool.
So basically this glasses company are a front for like NATO or something. Like they're just a weapons manufacturer.
He says, was it our company makes inexpensive spectacles for the third world
and missiles.
And missile guidance systems.
Yeah. So good. Oh dear. Yeah, and of course, you know, he's watching the video in the back of the limo because they say, "Oh, we're outside," and so he goes out and gets in the limo and he's watching this.
The driver says,
"Put the tape on.
Video ready for you. Just put your eyes to the screen."
Yeah. So of course, he's driven around in this limo, and as you said, he meets Barry Convex, who is wonderfully slimy, awful.
Oh, he is, isn't he?
Leslie Carlson, I think the actor's name, and he's great. He's so awful. You just want him to, I mean, he gets his comeuppance later, but you desperately want it to happen, and you want it to be like, when it's as nasty as it is, you're like, good.
Yeah.
Good.
He's the epitome of sleazy corporate dude.
Yeah, 100%. So he ends up going into the Spectacular Optical Corporation shop, doesn't he? And he starts putting on the glasses because after he gets out of the limousine.
He's going through the drawers of the different.
He kind of amuses himself with some of the glasses. For a while, and of course he ends up with the stupidest ones possible when Barry turns up.
Looking glasses, we've got these weird, like,
they're almost upside down.
Yeah, it weirdly reminds me of those glasses that what's his name? The snooker player used to wear them.
Oh God, yeah. I couldn't tell you the name of that snooker player.
Oh, what was his name? I can't remember what his bloody name is now.
I know who you mean though.
Mainly because obviously when you're aiming down tape the cue, you need the extra glasses, and he used to wear those awful looking glasses. That just reminded me of those.
Yeah. And Barry says, like, he's like, "Oh, you're overpowering your face with those glasses. You should try some."
He says, "You're playing with dynamite there," and he's like, and he sort of looks at him, he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" He says, "Oh, that's our spring collection line or something along those lines." It's like, they're not coming out yet. Then he says, about the overwhelming your face. It's like, you should try something else.
Yeah. So Barry gives part of the explanation. They head out to the back, and he basically says, "Look, you weren't meant to find this broadcast. Like, this was a test broadcast, and it's experimental. No one was meant to find it. So Harlan's found this. He broke our system. It was double scrambled. Like, you weren't supposed to find this. But now that you have, there are side effects and there's potential dangers." And he mentions the hallucinations and stuff. He said, "You've been having the hallucinations." And he's like, "Well, if you put on this massive VR headset, I can record your visions.
Yeah, we want to record your hallucinations.
Yeah, and maybe we can help you effectively."
Yeah. And is it this point he says, "Oh, you so far you've like basically survived longer than anybody else."
Yeah. He's like, "You've done better than anyone who's watched this thing." It's like, maybe this experiment is really shit. Have you considered that everyone who's bloody watched it has died within a couple of viewings? Doesn't sound very good. I mean, great weapon though for NATO.
They
I guess
died, and the guy sort of like sheepishly like goes, "Well, yeah, kind of."
A little bit. So of course he puts this big old headset thing on.
I don't know whether it
If Giger made fucking video headsets, I don't know.
It reminds me of like a big tick.
Yes, and I love the way it glows. It looks really. That scene of him is kind of creepy when he's kind of sat in the dark with the screen, the thing glowing.
Yeah.
It's like some weird techno organic thing.
Yeah, and when he initially puts it on, you've got the sort of pixelated vision.
Oh yeah, 'cause it's like night vision because the sun, the lights on, and it almost blinds him. But yeah, so he turns the light off, and yeah, it's all kind of pixelated, almost like if VR was made in '91 or something, you know.
Yeah.
But I love that Barry's like, oh, I'm gonna leave while you do this because I don't watch such things, you understand.
I have a stomach for it.
Yeah.
So that the headset and that James Woods refused to get in it.
Is it someone else? I was wondering when I watched it whether it was someone else.
He refused to get in it because he thought it would probably electrocute him.
Right.
So he refused to get in it. So that's actually
happy to send someone else to get electrocuted.
It's Cronenberg. Cronenberg agreed to do it.
It's fair play.
So that's Cronenberg with the actual headset on.
That is a really cool cameo, actually.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're gonna have a cameo, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So as he's sat in the dark with the headset on, he basically, as you said, it all starts very pixelated. And we see a very pixelated Nikki come into the room. But then before long, it all turns into kind of real life. It's all, 4K.
Yeah, the headset disappears. He's in the room.
And she hands him a whip. And then she's not in the room, but a TV is.
Yeah.
She basically, we see that she's basically tied herself up, and she's like, oh, punish me. But then as it pulls back, it's her in the TV, and it's actually the TV that's sat there. And so he starts whipping the TV. And he's in the red room, obviously, and everything else. So yeah, again, a really awesome.
I think one thing we didn't say is that when Oblivion explains about Videodrome, and he says about it's going to be a war. The war for video will be in the Videodrome, which is why it's called Videodrome.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, he as I said, he hallucinates and starts whipping the TV set. As he's doing it, we see the picture does change to Masha.
Yep.
It changes from Nikki to Masha. And ultimately, Ren is kind of startled into waking up, and it's just like, Jesus. I think he's like, Jesus Christ, Oblivion, what is in your tapes or whatever, But then, of course, he turns over to go back to sleep and realizes there's someone lying next to him. And it is the dead body of Masha. Who is lying in the bed completely covered in blood, where obviously she's presumably been whipped to death by him. And I'm not quite sure what the plan was here, but panicking, he calls Harlan.
Yep.
And gets Harlan to come over with a camera.
Yeah. Well, I think the plan is
he's been set up, I guess, or something.
Well, no, I think it's more of the fact that because of all of where he is right now, he's not sure what's real and what's not.
Sure.
And I think he wants Harlan to come over and film what's in there so that he has proof of what's there.
Yeah. It's almost like you want proof, but you are effectively getting proof that you've murdered someone, probably, if that's real. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a weird, like, I get what he's doing, but at the same time, it's like, But I guess he's not thinking straight at this stage. A lot of weird stuff's happened in the last couple of days.
But no, his perception of everything is no longer.
Yeah, it's completely warped. Yeah,
everything is heightened now.
Yeah. So he basically says to Harlan, he's like, "Go in there and photograph whatever is on the bed." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's obviously pissed off because they woke
him up, 4 a.m. or whatever time it is.
Yeah. And we see he goes in the room and he just kind of sighs.
Yeah.
And he comes back out and he's like, "There's nothing on your bed."
Yeah, he says, "Well, I presume you didn't want me to just take pictures of your bed."
Yeah, yeah. And then of course, like he's like, "What? Like, how can that be?" And of course, he runs in and he starts jumping on the bed and tearing the bed apart, trying to find the body of Masha. And Harlan starts walking out and he's like, "Right, we need to go to the office." And he's like, "Dude, like, I office hours. I'll be in office hours. Like, you've pulled me out of bed in the middle of the night to come and take a photo of your bed. I'm going home. Like, I'll see you at like 7 or." He's like 8 or 9, but I think he compromises and said, "Be there at 7, right?"
Yeah.
And ultimately he agrees to do that. I think, you know, Harlan does a good job of pretending to just be the pissed off employee who can't be bothered to deal with his shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so ultimately he agrees that he'll come in at 7 o'clock, and they'll try and figure this shit out. So yeah, I'm just trying to think now what happens next. What does he do next?
He wants to see the latest broadcast, doesn't he, of Videodrome?
Oh yeah, that's right. So that's why he wanted Harlan to get set up, right?
Yeah,
he would go see him.
The latest.
So yeah, you're right. So this is the the immediate next shot is him heading to the pirate station thing, to meet with Harlan, and to see the next broadcast. And Harlan says there is no broadcast, and he's like, "What?" He's like, "There is no broadcast." He's like, "What do you mean there's no broadcast?" And Harlan's like, "Well, maybe he can explain it better than I can." And in walks Barry Convex. Yeah, we start to understand what the situation is. He was chosen. This has not been an accident. He didn't come across the broadcast by accident. It was all a plot. And you know, he's like, how long have you worked here, Harlan? Like, you've been doing this for like 3 years or something? And he's like, yep, pretty much, earning your trust and working our way in.
Yeah.
And he reveals there was no broadcast. It was all pre-recorded tapes, and Harlan pre-recorded the tapes because previously Ren said to Harlan, he's like, and other people, he's like, how is Harlan not having hallucinations? Because earlier on he's like, "Harlan, have you been having hallucinations?" Harlan's like, "No."
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Nope.
And of course it turns out he never watched them. They were all pre-recorded, so he never had to see them.
Harlan's never actually facing the screen whenever you see it. He's always looked away.
Yeah.
He's not seen them. He knows what's on them because obviously he was given them.
Yeah. And of course he's, you know, Barry and presumably by extension the government have decided that Channel 83 is the perfect place for Videodrome to start because you're capturing all of the sleazy audience. Like, who would watch a show like Videodrome? Well, these kind of people. Those are the target audience. Literally the target audience. We want these people gone. So Videodrome.
And Harlan has this line about how America has got soft. You know, the rest of the world is out competing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, we need to get rid of that element. We need to toughen up the country and get rid of the trash.
Get rid of the trash, yeah. Yeah. So I think this is where he gets his first VHS tape inserted.
Yep.
As Convex.
VHS. Betamax.
Is it Betamax? I don't know.
Because the VHS tape's too big.
You may be right.
They chose Betamax because they're smaller.
Oh, really? For the show, for the film, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's VHS in the film, though, isn't it? I think they call it VHS a few times.
I don't think so. I think it's got.
Is it actually beta? Oh. So in any case, whatever. He produces the pulsating tape, and I can't remember what he says. What does he say to him? Because he says something to like for him to like basically open his shirt. He's almost already programmed for this to happen. and of course his shirt opens, and then the slit opens, and he receives his programming, and Convex says, kill your partners and give me channel 83. And yeah, he basically is now at this point programmed and controlled by Videodrome, and by Convex, as a result, to basically do whatever they want him to do. So of course Barry and Harlan make themselves scarce as Ren kind of writhes around on the floor in kind of agony, but then he crawls out and tries to remove the tape. But of course, instead of the tape, he pulls the gun out. And now we realize why he bought the gun, why he had the gun. It was all part of the programming that he would end up getting the gun primed and ready, and he's now in the right position. He's now programmed. I guess it was like I guess subconscious. At first it was a subconscious signal for him to do things like get the gun and stuff. Now it's full on conscious. It's fully taking control of him. As he pulls out this gross, disgusting gun covered in like ooze and pus and
first of all, don't we get that really fucking cool shot of the like the steel bars coming out of his fingers?
Oh no, I meant when he immediately pulls it out and it's all the gun and it's all kind of gross and disgusting, and then the bars start coming out of the gun, don't they? And going through his arm.
I think you don't get the gross stuff until afterwards when he pulls it out later.
No. I mean, it's covered in blood and gross stuff.
Oh,
not the fully transformed thing. No.
Not the flesh gun.
No, I just meant the vagina juice.
Yes,
that's what I was referring to.
Gore. Yeah.
Yes, and then you get the like almost like rebar, isn't it? The kind of like spiked rebar.
Exactly what it looks like rebar that's coming from the gun into his flesh, and I love that.
It's very Tetsuo.
The nails, I think, are the thing that gives it away, that it's not.
Yeah, it's like once it's in its arm, it looks perfect. It's just the bit getting there is the only bit.
I love the way it goes from his fingers into his sort of the soft of his palm.
Yeah,
and it comes out again, and you get that little sort of like a loop come out, and it goes back into his flesh again.
Yeah,
and you get that top bit that comes from the top of the gun into the top of his hand. It looks so fucking good. I love that.
It is an incredible effect. I mean, we said the visual effects in this movie are incredible, and they still totally stand up. Like pretty much every effect in this film stands up. It looks amazing. And it is one of those things I worried about, because sometimes you're like, I haven't watched this for a while. Like, is it going to be all right? And it is. It totally holds up. So we cut to him turning up at the Civic TV station. And he's kind of walking around. He sees what's her name, the secretary woman, speaks to her, and he's like, "Oh, where are the bosses? Where are they?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, they're waiting for you in the meeting room, in the conference room where you watch all of your sleazy shit." She's like, in that room with the tissues. We don't go in that room.
The wet room.
Fucking blue light that room later on. So he walks in, and they greet him, and he promptly pulls the gun and shoots one of them, and then the other guy starts begging for his life, but it doesn't go particularly well.
And I actually like that he's not exactly with the first couple of shots. They sort of go, wide, what a bit wide, because it catches him in the arm. And it's clearly not a practiced marksman or anything.
No.
He's just firing.
Yeah. And I love that obviously the secretary and a bunch of people come to the door, and he immediately feigns injury. He like puts the gun, and he's like, like pretending like he's been shot, and of course she cares for him, so she's like, come on, let's get you you to the...
He sort of mumbles something about, they just opened up, sort of thing. They just started firing, and she ushers him out of the room.
And then she's like, it is a weird thing because it's like, well, there's only like 3 people in the room. 2 of them are dead.
Yeah.
Would lead me to suspect that you at least shot them eventually. But of course, she takes him into a room. She tells someone else to shut up and stay out of the way. Puts him in this room, and then is surprised when he escapes through the window. She's like, "Oh, wait, where are you going?" It's like, what did you think just happened?
Maybe she thought it was finally her chance. I don't know.
Yeah, you do get the impression that she was kind of like, "Yeah, I hopefully one day, we'll make it." But he ends up escaping and running through the night to the.
I really like the thing here is he comes out of the building, and there were like some workmen moving doors around.
Yes,
and it's sort of like I like the sort of layers. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I'm probably not. I love the sort of.
There's a lot of imagery in this. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, they're sort of moving these doors around with windows in, and it's almost sort of vision upon vision, as it were, sort of thing. If you think of it that way, it's a really cool shot.
It is, and similarly, he goes to the cathode and he breaks the window to get in there as well. So it's like a window breaking as he comes into his next target is obviously Bianca, as she suspected. And of course, as he heads up and sees her, she says, "Oh, so it was you."
Yeah.
She basically was like, "Oh yeah, so it was you all along. You just weren't aware of it, but it was you this entire time. You were the person that was sent to finish me off."
Yeah.
Or finish off her and by extension her father's work, effectively put an end to all of it. But he hesitates, right? He does somewhat hesitate, and she kind of dances around a bit and. Because doesn't he he basically says like, "No, I'm not here to kill you," and he's like saying like, "No, not at all. Like, I'm not doing that." But he's got that like psycho stare in his eyes, is like clearly you are. She's like, "No, you are. That's why you're here."
Yeah, it's the old Jack. Honey, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in.
Well, the only thing I think that saves her is that she starts playing the death scene, Nikki's death scene.
Well, he goes to sort of, there's like a screen.
Because this is when he pulls the gun out and it is all like Giger-esque.
It's now a flash gun. It's integrated into his.
It's a Giger gun now.
Yes, it's the Giger gun now, and he thinks she's behind this screen hiding, so he goes to remove this. He rips this screen away.
Yeah.
TV there with Nikki on.
Yeah, it's her death in Videodrome.
And Bianca says to him, she's been dead for ages. You haven't seen her at all. She's been after obviously they initially met.
They met on TV,
yeah. But this is she went there and that's it. She's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, she was killed by she was killed by Videodrome along with all the other people at Spectacular Optical Corporation. And before he can really react any further, a second flesh gun emerges from that TV set, and shoots him. And basically it's kind of like a real violent deprogramming where he's been shot and he's like, "Oh no, you're free of the programming now," or reprogrammed, I guess it should be.
I love that. So you get the hand come out with the thing. It shoots him.
Yeah.
You get his wounding.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to the screen, and the screen is his stomach. It's his bleeding torso. And
his shirt is completely bullet. Is free of bullet holes. He's completely fine. His hand's back to normal. But of course he is ready for programming. He's ready for a tape. And Bianca has her own tape. To reprogram him. It's one of those things where it's like, well, she's reprogramming him, but I imagine he would have gone along with this anyway at this point. It's basically like, they've ruined your life. You're now like wanted for double murder. Go get the people responsible for creating Videodrome. And so she puts the tape in him, and she says, death to Videodrome, long live the new Flash.
Yeah. But she says to him, what is it? She says, "Oh, I am the living. Oh, I've become the wake. Oh, for fuck's sake! What is it?
I honestly can't remember. So if you've got the quote,
I have become the wake world made flesh. Is that what he says?
Oh, the video word made flesh.
The video. That's it. The video.
Yeah.
I have become the video word made
Yeah.
flesh. That's what he says. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's such a good line. And so he's now reprogrammed to go after Videodrome. And I love this the next shot with the homeless guy who's needing to have his TV. He's basically like, obviously it's rent on the TV as the most wanted man in the state.
Yeah.
But this homeless guy stood there not watching the TV but begging for money to keep like his TV recharged because he needs to charge it.
Just to feed my monkey.
Yeah.
And he's got
like a battery or something. Like
the TV's on like a trolley.
Yeah.
And he has a lead. He's holding a lead.
Yeah.
On it. And yeah, he's like, go on, just give me some money to keep using. It's not easy to keep it powered, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, like even homeless people are hopelessly addicted to this TV. They have to like wheel one around with them. He ends up going to the Spectacular Optical Corporation, and kind of, despite being on TV, I guess, it only happened a few minutes ago, so people that weren't watching it that very second presumably aren't aware of it. He manages to get in. He kind of coaxes his way through. There's a guy who tries to sell him some glasses on the way in. And he makes his way into the back, where he finds Harlan. But of course, Harlan's like, well, he's still under programming, so he's like, "Oh, did you succeed?" And
it's like waiting for new orders, sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. He's waiting for new programming, and of course, Ren plays it off as if it's fine, and they start talking about it because he's like packing a box, isn't he? He's like, "Oh, what's in the box?" and all of that kind of stuff. But yes. We learn. I don't know if it was mentioned before, but we learn because he's like, well, where is Convex? And he says, oh, he's at the big trade show, Toronto Convention Center, is the Spectacular Optical Trade Show, and he's introducing the new spring collection, which is what Harlan is taping up. It's the spring collection.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he basically, Harlan gets a tape to give him the next program, doesn't he? And he puts it in, and he finds he cannot remove his arm. He gets pulled in.
Yeah.
And basically, you can tell he's kind of in agony as he's kind of trying to pull the thing out. And as he does, he pulls it out, and it's like eating away at his flesh, and then his hand is like a grenade now.
Yeah,
it's like holding a grenade.
It's morphed his hand into a grenade.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like
gross, fleshy
flesh grenade. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like what? Like the gun becomes organic. It's like an organic explosive.
Yeah.
And you get the great shot of him like walking backwards, and now like the wind is on his hair and stuff, and it's all like real like weird. And everyone in the office is like, "What the fuck is going on?" As he kind of walks back with this skeletal hand and grenade. And oh god, what does he say before he explodes?
Oh, I can't remember what he says. Damn it.
I can't. Does he say it? No, because he says "death to the Videodrome" in the convention, doesn't he? I can't remember what he says now, but he says something witty anyway, and then he explodes, taking out the wall.
Yeah.
Which is great because then he walks through that wall. He's like, "Oh, okay, perfect. There's my exit."
The door.
So he then steps out and heads to the trade show.
I love the trade show.
It's amazing.
It's you get that like weird Renaissance show of somebody. It's like dancers and stuff, and it's like, oh, I've seen like videos.
Yeah, these things existed.
Conference. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're so cheesy and awful.
Amazing. I would love to have been at one though. You know, like in hindsight now, where you're like, God, I wish I could have been. Not like all day, but just to see some of this shit.
I've heard stories like comedians that have been hired.
Yeah.
And they're most of the time they're like, I have no idea why I was hired because no one got my jokes. They were all like, weird sort of corporate people.
Yeah, they never get anything even remotely fitting, do they? It's weird. No. It's like they have to appear hip in some way.
Yeah.
So like, oh, we got this real famous modern comedian. Like, none of us will find it funny, but aren't we cool and hip? We're in touch with the kids. But here, yeah, it's like some naff cabaret dance thing going on. Because there's like, girls dancing and guys doing handstands and stuff.
Yeah.
And then of course out comes Convex. Ren is sat there with his back to him though, isn't he? With the he picks up a I guess menu. A pamphlet or something, menu or something.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm just normally fitting. I'm just a normal person fitting in.
Yeah. Although I mean,
not at all.
I guess Convex wouldn't be too terrified because he still probably thinks he's programmed anyway.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like he would be a threat at this point. But yeah, and of course as Convex is talking, is doing his naff sales pitch, we see Ren starting to unbutton his shirt and ultimately he presumably pulls out the organic gun. Convex sees him just in the kind of almost nick of time.
Yeah.
And we do get this kind of, you get those people for a moment are like, is this part of the show?
Yeah.
It's like, maybe this is part of the show. And they're like, no, this is not part of the show. He's actually been shot.
Oh, no, it's not. It's real.
He's been shot several times and in the face. But yeah, and as we said, this fucker deserved this. This is a horrifically over the top and gross death. It reminded me a lot of, it's like Scanners, but in slow motion.
Yeah.
Where he's just like being torn apart slowly and like these like
they're cancer bullets.
Yeah, cancerous growth start exploding from him.
Yeah, each bullet is a cancerous growth that starts growing in size, pushing its way through his body.
It is,
and the
fucking
face
glorious.
Is
it's such a good effect, and it's still disgusting now.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't look cheesy. It looks really gross and painful, and it really does sell the agony that he must be in.
The way his face comes apart is just really bloody good. It's so cool. Yeah. And then what I love is the effect for that is literally like a table with the body on, and then
they're just pulling it apart.
5 people underneath, sort of thing. And as they call it, pushing cancer puppets through the body.
That is not the kind of thing you want to fuck up and have to do again either.
No, but they said basically, of course, all the gore and all the stuff is just
pouring on them
onto them. And he said they basically, after they were done, they were all like, they're all just covered in gore and blood. And then they had to go to the hotel like that. And he said they were walking in like all covered in like when people, like high class people in like fur coats and stuff, just like staring at them like, what the fuck is happening?
So yeah, mission accomplished, and he does say, "Death to Videodrome, long live the new flesh." And he then retires to an abandoned harbor with this derelict old boat, this unsafe for humans to be on. It's condemned, and he basically hides up in the hold of this ship or boat.
I love the fact that he finds that sort of grubby mattress which he moves about sort of to sit on.
Yeah,
makes himself like a little seat. And then he finds like an empty bottle and he finds an empty cigarette packet, and it's like the look of dejection when he opens a cigarette packet, and it's like,
he's like, oh, maybe I could have a cigarette, maybe one, give me this one thing. Nope. All you've got is TV somehow, or at least hallucinated TV. as we see that the TV that has haunted him the entire film is now that, you know, his living room TV is now just happens to be in this boat. And we see Nikki, and she informs him, you know, well, you know, you haven't defeated Videodrome. You've weakened it.
Yeah.
But you can't defeat it in your flesh. That you have to go to the next level. You have to ascend, and the only way to completely defeat Videodrome is to leave the old flesh, embrace the new flesh.
Mm-hmm.
I love this transition where the TV basically shows him shooting himself in the head in front of the fire.
She says, I'll show you what you need to do.
Yeah. And of course it transitions to him doing exactly that.
Yeah.
He shoots himself in the head with the gun. The TV explodes, and we get like intestines and stuff come out of the TV.
Yeah, he says long live the new flesh, and shoots himself, and yeah. I mean, you first of all, when you get the first thing is the vision shows you the television exploding, and then he does it.
Yes.
He was, and so the exploding thing that's actually pig guts.
It looks real. Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently where they were filming that scene, across the road was an abattoir.
Oh, okay. Well,
and one of the guys went and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, we're doing a film. Can we have some guts?" And he said, "I was fully expecting to be told to piss off." And they said, "Get some black bags and come back in half an hour."
Amazing.
So they did, and they didn't film straight away. So they go back.
Why?
These bags full of guts, and I think like over the weekend they left them there. And he said,
and I bet they didn't even ice them or anything. They just literally left them. I don't think
so. They came back and they opened the bag. He said, "If you ever need to clear a room."
I don't know why they were shocked.
Yeah.
Like, so what did you expect was going to happen?
They had to do, yeah, so...
Why didn't they say, "Hey, have you got any guts?" And they were like, "Oh, come back in 2 hours." And they would have been like, "Wait, can we come back on Monday?"
Yeah, like, you'd have thought so, wouldn't you? Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I guess they were, you know, it was too good to be true, so let's just do it sort of thing.
Or maybe they got it and planned to do the shoot that day, but ran out of time. And then they were like, "Oh, God, we'll just leave them in the corner and come back. They'll be fine."
Basically, it was you know, the guts were put in the TV, and it was an air cannon was going to be used to chuck it through. And the first time they did it, they fired it, and nothing really happened. A bit of guts came out, and that was it. And they were like, "Oh fuck!" So they then had to wait like hours for the things to recharge and do, go all that. And the guy was like, "I'm not, because there's no way I am gonna fuck this up again. I'm not going to fuck this
up." No, we're not staying here for
just,
another couple of hours.
Put the air cannons up full and was like, "Yep, that is going to do it." And that was exactly what happened. He said the exploded, the cannons went off, and it just chucked the guts fucking everywhere.
And the shot is great. I mean, the shot really is great. So
it's fantastic.
So yes, and that is Videodrome. As I said, a film that is still more relevant than ever with social media, and the internet, and honestly hasn't aged a day in terms of its effects. They all stand up. Mm-hmm. They look great.
Yep. I mean, all the performances are pretty good. I mean,
superb.
Debbie Harry's not the greatest of actresses,
but it works for that character.
Yeah, it works for her, for what she's doing here.
She doesn't need range as this character, you know.
And there was a couple of other things that were in the script that they didn't end up doing, and one of them was, I think it was Nikki and Bianca, were shown to have the same organ that he had.
Oh, okay.
And then there was supposed to be like a merging of sex organs that came out of them.
Right.
And there was supposed to be like a sort of a weird, almost orgy type scene, but they decided that they didn't want to go with that in the end. So, And I think they even made the organs. I think the crew made the organs, and they were waiting to set up. And then Cronenberg sort of came in one day and just said, "Yeah, we're not doing that now." And it's like, oh damn! So they already had made a start on
Yeah.
it. The idea for this story went from his childhood.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said basically when he was a kid, he'd get very faint signals from American TV from New York, and he said it felt kind of like he might see something wrong or something. You know, it was almost like a surreptitious thing that he might be corrupted by this sort of imagery from a foreign country, as it were.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And he had made a number of attempts to sort of do a similar thing. I think there was a thing called he was planning on doing called Network of Blood in the 70s, which didn't come ahead, but that morphed into this movie.
Right.
So yeah, I love this film. It's gross and brilliant, and as I said, it really does certainly made me come away at the end of it going, fucking hell, the way the internet works now and the way
it feels just as relevant, if not more, than it did when it was made.
When you hear things like companies like BlackRock saying, everybody will be like this. You know, we will force diversity into it, and that's just be the way it will be. And you think, wow, fuck, you know.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, the fake propaganda and all sorts of things on both sides of that aisle and all sorts of stuff. It's crazy stuff. You see it everywhere, and it does make this film feel more relevant than ever in my mind. But something happened just before we started. We were discussing this, and you were going to mention this when I said to you, and I thought we'd leave it for the show. So I've never seen the trailer for Videodrome before today.
Yes.
I needed the trailer to put in the background of this video, and I was like, yeah, fine. Went to get the video, and I was like, this trailer is incredible. It's like a work of art. And you said that you knew how it was made, so
I've not seen it.
Never seen it before. I was expecting a much more traditional trailer, to say the least.
So when I was looking up stuff for it, they said this trailer was made on a Commodore 64.
And it looks like it.
And it does look like it, but it looks fucking awesome, doesn't it?
It does. It's amazing.
It's so cool. I love the idea that it's like, we just did it on a Commodore and put some scenes in it. And it's a weirdly beautiful trailer, I think.
It's almost, like I said, it's kind of an art piece in a weird way. It tells you nothing about the film. Like, it's like, I mean, it's even more confusing than the film is, I think, the trailer. Like, if I saw this trailer as a kid, I would have been like, I don't even know what I'm seeing. Like, I have no idea.
It's very arty. It's a complete art piece, and I love it. I thought, wow, I've never seen that trailer before.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I'm sure I've seen a Videodrome trailer, but it wasn't that one.
Yeah, I feel like I would have seen one. Maybe the old VHS trailers were a bit different. That might be the case.
Also, it might have been a regional thing as well. We might not have got that trailer over here.
That's true. But I have it now, and it's amazing. I highly recommend both Videodrome and separately watching the trailer on YouTube, because it is a trip. It's amazing. But yeah,
this is another one of those movies that tanked on the.
Oh yeah, I can totally imagine this film tanking.
Like I think it was like 5 minutes.
I would have been surprised if this film didn't tank. To be honest, it's so weird. Yeah. Like how do you even sell it? You know.
And one of the.
I feel like oddly, it would probably market easier today than it would have back then.
Yeah, I think as a sort of
as an artsy statement.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is, I think Cronenberg himself said he didn't see it as an art movie, and he didn't see it as a, mainstream movie. He said he's never really been sure what it is, and that's him himself saying that. So and what I like is, do you know the movie he turned down to do this?
I don't know.
Return of the Jedi.
Really?
Yeah, he was asked if he would do Jedi.
I can't imagine Cronenberg's Return of the Jedi. I mean, I guess he would have just had to have done, I guess I mean, I can't imagine Cronenberg going for that anyway, because he's got no say or direction over it. It's like, the third part of a trilogy? Like,
yeah.
If he was making A New Hope, he could have some kind of stamp, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think he made the right choice.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Oblivion character was based on a Marshall McLuhan, who was a guy who actually wrote stuff about the effect of TV on people and the effect of on personality and all that sort of stuff. So in real life, and apparently he did get a tumor.
Oh God.
And when it was removed, apparently it affected his personality, and he had to reread his own books because he didn't remember what he'd written.
Oh goodness.
So yeah, he was. So Oblivion was based on this guy, and I think Cronenberg even took one of his classes at one point as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But yes, in any case, that was Videodrome. Highly, highly recommended. And yes, we will be back next week with our usual review fare. Yeah, it's probably worked out pretty well now. I offset everything accidentally this week because I got to I think it was Wednesday or something.
Right.
And I was suddenly like, oh shit, I never posted the episode. It was like on Friday, I was like, oh yeah, I'll post that episode in a bit. And then I don't know, it just didn't happen. So I guess this one will go out, from our perspective, the start of next week, and it'll all be great. It'll all kind of even out again. But yeah, it was just one of those weird things. I think we do these so regularly that sometimes my brain forgets and thinks that the last time I uploaded it was this time, if that makes sense. Because we do it so often that I'm like, oh yeah, that's done. I was like, no, it was not done. So yeah. In any case, we will be back next week reviewing some new things. But until then, stay safe, take care, and we'll catch you next time.
Long live the new Flash.
Indeed.